I'd like to call to order the April 8th, 2026 meeting of the Del Rio Planning Commission. May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Krieger. Here. Commissioner Getzelt.
Here.
Commissioner Amati.
Here.
Commissioner Wood.
Here.
Commissioner Panay.
Here.
Commissioner Machi.
Here.
Chair Hayworth.
Here. And I'd like to lead us all in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, ask the planning commissioners to review the consent agenda. The changes. Any comments from the public on the consent agenda? Okay, I'll look for a motion to accept.
I move we accept the minutes from the last meeting, the consent agenda. I second.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Passes unanimously. Okay, public comment. Anyone wishing to address the commission on matters not appearing on the agenda may do so now. The public may comment on any other matters listed on the agenda at the time the matter is being considered by the commission. There will be a time limit of not more than 3 minutes for each speaker. No action will be taken by the commission on matters brought up under this item, and all comments will be referred to staff.
Hi, I'm Alice Green. I live on Saucedo Avenue. And I noticed when I was on my way over here that the pedestrian crossing sign just up the street here on this side is mostly covered up with vegetation coming from that direction. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment. Reports, planning commissioners, any questions, comments?
Yeah, I just want to comment that it looks like since last year at this time, we've had 6 new ADUs or junior ADUs, which I think is fabulous, and we're really excited about that.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, close. Old business. There is no old business. So new business. Applicant's name is George McGuire, the Banyan Group Construction at 120 Delray Gardens, planning area 012-601-024-000. The project description requesting architectural review, variance, and conditional use permit to remodel and expand the floor area of the existing 2-story commercial office building with a private automobile design studio, sales showroom, event venue for on the first floor, and residential apartments on the second floor, proposed for short-term rental. Additional installation of a new entry tower, construction of covered garages for the residential units, new ADA, accessible parking spaces, and new concrete patio adjacent to the main entry with concrete sidewalk leading to the entry.
Chair, I have to recuse myself because I live too close.
Commissioner Getzelt is recusing because she's inside the 500 feet of the project. Okay, we have, so the city staff, Denise Duffy and Associates, and the applicant have been working with the city for about 4 months on this project. And Robin Simpson from Denise Duffy and Associates is going to talk to the project for us.
Everyone hear me okay? Right on. Good evening, planning commissioners. My name is Robin Simpson. I'm a deputy project manager at Denise Duffy and Associates. I helped prepare the staff report that's in front of you all today on behalf of city staff. I am pleased to present the content of the staff report to you this evening. So we'll start off with a project summary and location. The project is located at 120 Delray Gardens Drive. The assessor's parcel number is 012-601-024-000. The site's existing zoning designation is commercial, specifically the C1 zoning designation. The land use designation of this site is neighborhood commercial, and the site is occupied by an existing two-story building. The existing commercial property site is located within an area of office, light industrial, and service commercial uses along Delray Gardens Drive. Regional access is provided by Canyon Delray Boulevard. Multifamily residential condominiums are located nearby, and the property is located next to the Monterey Regional Airport. Our review of the airport safety zones in the airport land use plan indicates that the property is outside the airport safety zones restricting residential use. Mr. George McGuire, on behalf of Banyan Group Construction, hereafter referred to as the applicant, has submitted an architectural review application for alterations to the existing commercial/office building, including a variance request for parking and building additions. The applicant proposes to remodel and expand the floor area of the existing two-story commercial and office building and convert the second floor into 2 residential apartments to be made available for short-term rental use. So the project would consist of a remodel and expansion of the floor area of the existing building. The proposed uses on the first floor consist of private automobile design studio, sales showroom, and event venue. The proposed uses on the second floor consist of 2 residential units that will be utilized as short-term rental units. The project also includes a new 4-car covered garage within the footprint of an existing parking lot on the south end of the site. The applicant is requesting variances to allow construction of the project, specifically related to the reduction in the front setback requirements for the remodeled building and modifications to the parking requirements due to the proposed remodeled mixed-use commercial and residential space. I'd like to talk a little bit more about some of the specifics of the project. Relevant details can be found in your packet. So the applicant proposes to demolish the existing wood frame walls on both the first and second floor. The first floor will be expanded by approximately 3,805 square feet, and the second floor will be expanded by approximately 3,715 square feet for a total expansion of 7,520 square feet. Removal of 1 tree is anticipated as part of the project, as shown on sheet A100 of the project plans. The majority of the existing landscaping will remain in place, and while some portions of the existing landscaping would be replanted with city-approved drought-resistant species. The proposed expansion will increase usable space and enhance the visual depth of the building's north facade. Additional work includes the installation of a new entry tower, construction of covered garages for the short-term residential units, a new handicap-accessible van parking space, and a new concrete patio adjacent to the main entry, along with a concrete sidewalk leading to the new entrance. The remodeled building will include new wood-framed walls with drywall finishes, insulation, drywall ceilings, complete electrical, plumbing, and HVAC systems. Interior and exterior finishes will include ceramic tile flooring, cabinetry, granite countertops, paint, wood doors and frames, windows, restrooms, bathtubs, and showers, roofing, waterproofing, second floor decks and balconies, wrought iron elements, and new concrete foundations and sidewalls. Please refer to the renderings included in your packets for a visual representation of the exterior of the remodeled buildings. So the applicant has installed orange-colored netting on the property to show the outline and height of the proposed new structure, second-story additions, changes to the existing roof line, and changes in building footprint as required by the city's architectural review process. Photographic evidence is provided as part of your project packet. So as to parking, sheet A100 of the project plans identifies off-street parking spaces, as well as ingress and egress points between the street and parking areas. The applicant proposes to construct a new 4-car garage within the footprint of the existing southern parking area. Section 1724040 of the city's code requires parking for professional services to equal 1 parking space for every 300 square feet of development, which would total 18 spaces based on the proposed 5,405 square feet of the ground floor professional services. Section 1708090 of the city's code requires 1 covered parking space consisting of 1 attached or detached enclosed parking space measuring no less than 288 square feet per residential unit. These requirements are summarized in Table 1 of the attached staff report, and Table 2 of the staff report shows the parking proposed by the applicant. The proposed parking plan includes a shortfall of 2 parking spaces for the professional services use. The applicant has applied for a variance for the professional services parking shortfall and the addition of the covered residential parking. I'd now like to discuss the variance process for this project, as discussed in more detail in the staff report. Development standards for the C1 zoning district are described in section 1724040 of the city's municipal code. Lot areas and dimensions are required to have a 10,000 square foot minimum size at a minimum width of 50 feet and depth of 100 feet. Setbacks of 35 feet are required for the front, 10 feet for the sides, and 15 feet for the rear, with a maximum building height of 2 stories or 30 feet in height for principal structures, and a maximum building height of 1 story or 15 feet for any accessory structures. These standards apply to all C1 properties unless otherwise granted a variance pursuant to section 1724040, subsection A of the city's code. As mentioned previously, the applicant is applying for a building variance to reduce the front setback of the remodeled building to approximately 17.9 feet. It should be noted that the front setback of the existing building appears to be under 35 feet under existing conditions. The variance for the proposed reduction in the front setback is necessary due to the unique physical characteristics of the subject property and the functional requirements of the proposed mixed-use development, specifically the ability to provide adequate on-site parking, functional access, and usable open space, as further explained in the applicant's variance application materials. The side and rear setbacks of the remodeled building and the new garage structure would meet their respective minimum setbacks of 10 and 15 feet. The proposed garage has been sited in the existing southern parking area, as no other configuration of the garage within the existing developed footprint of the property would meet the required 10-foot minimum side yard setback or the required 15-foot minimum rear setback. The proposed garage structure would meet applicable setback requirements. The applicant is requesting an additional variance related to meeting parking requirements for the ground floor professional uses, ratio of 1 space per 300 square feet of development. The project proposes the addition of 2 short-term residential units to the property. These residential units may be rented out as long-term residential units in the future. Under section 1708090 of City Code, the project would be required to add covered parking spaces consisting of 1 attached or detached enclosed garage space measuring no less than 288 square feet at a rate of 1 garage space per residential unit. The project would have a shortfall of 2 parking spaces for the ground floor professional uses. So, pursuant to Delray Oaks Municipal Code, section 1744020, an application for a variance shall include a statement and adequate evidence showing the following 3 standards below. A, that there are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the land, building, or use referred to in the application, which circumstances or conditions do not apply generally to land, buildings, and/or uses in the same district. B, the granting of the application is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of the substantial property rights of the petitioner. And C, that the granting of such application will not, under the circumstances of the particular case, materially affect adversely the health or safety of persons residing or working in the neighborhood of the property of the applicant and will not, under the circumstances of the particular case, be materially detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property or improvements in said neighborhood. The applicant has provided information to support the findings for approval of variances as shown in the packet. The applicant has demonstrated that the project incorporates appropriate site planning measures, including adequate parking for the proposed uses, safe vehicular and pedestrian circulation, and designated open space, which collectively promote safe and functional use of the property. The scale, intensity, and design of the proposed development are consistent with the uses permitted within the zoning district and are not anticipated to generate significant increases in traffic, noise, or other potential impacts compared to the office commercial uses currently allowed on the site. Additionally, the project is a reconstruction of existing commercial space to allow for mixed-use commercial and residential uses on a site that is already developed, has adequate infrastructure, access, and available land area for the proposed use. The applicant has noted that the variance is necessary due to the unique physical characteristics of the subject property and the functional requirements of the proposed mixed-use development, specifically the ability to provide adequate on-site parking, functional access, and usable open space. Regarding use permit and zoning, as discussed previously, project site is located in the C1 zoning district and carries a neighborhood commercial land use designation. Section 1724030 of the zoning ordinance states that residential uses are a conditional use in the C1 district and would require a conditional use permit. Pursuant to sections 1724010 and 1720010 of the Delray Oaks Municipal Code, the C1 district is intended to accommodate limited retail, service, and office uses that serve local needs while maintaining compatibility with surrounding development. Section 1720020 of the city's code permits all uses allowed in residential districts within commercial zones, and Section 1724030 allows residential uses in the C1 district subject to a conditional use permit in compliance with applicable residential standards. Additionally, Section 1708025 of the city's code states that certain residential activities, such as short-term rentals in the R1 district, require a conditional use permit. Short-term rentals are defined in City Ordinance Number 293 as a privately owned residential dwelling, such as, but not limited to, apartment house, condominium, cooperative apartment, or duplex, rented for occupancy for dwelling, lodging, or sleeping purposes for any period less than 30 consecutive days. Short-term residential rentals require a conditional permit, and the proposed short-term residential rental is therefore not considered a permitted use in the C1 zoning district. Therefore, a conditional use permit would be required to accommodate the proposed short-term residential uses and residential units proposed under the project. Regarding the environmental determination for the project would be categorically exempt pursuant to CEQA guidelines. The proposed actions fall under a Class 1 categorical exemption for existing facilities and a Class 3 categorical exemption for new construction or conversion of small structures. As for our recommendation, we recommend that the Planning Commission make appropriate findings and impose conditions as appropriate and give direction to staff. This concludes my presentation on the staff report. Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you. If you'll hang there, we'll come to the commission for questions for clarification of no comments at this point. Commissioner Krieger. Sure. Thank you.
So the idea, if I'm understanding right, it's it'd be like the customers coming in, especially bar place. Then that would be at least initially primarily would be customers. The idea.
Yeah, that is my understanding of the proposed use for the short-term
Okay.
residences.
And I guess one question I have, and you may or may not be able to answer, is that considered a short-term rental? I mean, we've got one license left, or does the conditional use permit preclude that? I mean, if we keep saying short-term rental, and we do have an ordinance that limits that to 25, and right now we have 24. So I just want to get that clarified, if that's an issue or not. It may not be an issue, but something I'd like to get clarified. Do you know how big the events are, or how often they're going to do them? Are you?
I believe the applicant will speak to the nature of the event.
That's right. Okay, that's what I was hoping.
Let me, if
Yeah.
I may, is the applicants here as well?
That was my
Mr.
understanding.
Oh,
All right.
okay, then probably.
We maybe want to have him.
Yeah,
talk
why
as
don't we go
well,
ahead
and then because some of my questions kind of bleed over.
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
Between the
If
two.
if you don't mind, can you come up and maybe comment on your project and your vision for it? We've got the mechanics of it, I think, but you might be able to talk a little more about the soft stuff.
Great. Yeah, my name is George McGuire, Banning Group Construction.
Could you speak up?
George McGuire, Banning Group Construction, and I am the applicant and the owner of the structure. And the plan is to turn this into a car venue. So I'm a general contractor, and I also do car restoration. And in our restoration, we have other car restoration companies that we deal with. And the one thing that we all lack is a show place. So if somebody wants us to specifically look for a car, if they want to bring a car in somewhere to show off their car and discuss how they want it restored. And then once it's been restored, then bring it back and then have a venue. say, for example, somebody has a Mustang, so you invite maybe the local Mustang club to come and you have a grand opening of what the car looks like. The owner of the car would come in and stay in the apartments, and then they would get to take their cars and journey all through the South Bay. So they would go to Santa Cruz all the way down to Big Sur and enjoy the area. So that's the design of the space.
All right.
Let me get
Sure,
back
yeah,
in.
go ahead.
Okay, great. So thank you. So I guess I'm just trying to get a feel, how often do you expect to have, you're saying events? How often do you, maybe, what's your business model? I mean, how do you
We're
anticipate?
the first one to do this. So there really isn't much of a business model to lean back on. During Car Week, obviously, I think that'll be a desired week. And then when Laguna Seca, they have races where there's a circuit, and then their cars will come in, and then they can come in and they can the owners can rent the building with the apartments, and they can work on their cars there in the garages. And then they have a place downstairs to have an event for their own little parties and venues that they're doing. My anticipation, probably, especially in the beginning, may like be 4 times a year.
Mhm.
I'd love to see, I think after the word gets out, maybe 12 times a year.
What kind of traffic do you anticipate for these? I mean, these are probably, is it like a general public kind of thing, or is it more like the car enthusiast kind of thing, that
It's,
word of mouth, like, we're talking about 10 people, 50 people, roughly? I mean, what?
so generally, on a day-to-day, there won't be hardly anybody there.
Right.
It'll be just used during it when there actually is going to be an event. Events are typically not open to the public. It's invite only. But if someone's driving by, you're going to get somebody who walks up, and we're not going to turn people away because they want to look at a Lamborghini or
Yeah.
a Ferrari or even a Ford Mustang.
Okay.
So it's not really open to the public, but we don't anticipate that it's going to have a big public draw to it.
You have any anticipated revenue projections for what you think this might kind of bring in? And honestly, what I'm actually looking at really is sales tax. Is
Yeah.
Is it something that's going to generate? But do you have an idea what it might generate, just to get a ballpark?
In our profiling, we feel that that'll generate between 350,000 and 400,000 a year
In sales?
in sales,
Okay.
in rentals, in events.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not a used car dealer. It's not a place where we're going to show cars. It's designed for a specific reason.
Okay. So, all right. And you said it might eventually turn into long-term rentals. Is that if
Yeah,
the
worst case
possibility is
scenario,
there?
worst case scenario, we can
Okay.
turn it into long-term rentals, and then the downstairs just becomes basically a museum of cars.
Okay. All right.
I believe the reason we had to have the short-term rental designation is because of the length of stay, that when somebody would come in there, probably wouldn't be more than 7 to 10 days.
Mm-hmm.
So by zoning and by code, I believe we have to have the short-term rental designation.
Nice looking apartments. Better than what I had. Yeah, maybe the city attorney could address that later about the STR question. I just want to make sure we get that clarified, so it's not something that pops up later and becomes a
Yeah.
last minute thing. I think that's all for now for clarification.
Okay, great. Commissioner Amati.
Yes. So the actual work on the cars, that's going to occur in the
Elsewhere.
4-car garages or outside?
No, it won't be a garage for restoration of vehicles.
Where will that occur?
Well, most of the restoration companies we deal with are in Southern California, somewhere in Northern California.
So when the car is completed and you have this venue, so the car is outside somewhere that people come and look, or I didn't
Yeah.
see any place to be able to drive a car into your building.
Yeah, on the side.
On the side? That doesn't
Yeah,
look like,
it would be
Doors for
capable of
cars.
having a lift and bringing the car into the building.
It-
That isn't really necessarily the goal. The goal is that the car is out and maybe a roped off section
Uh-huh.
in one of the parking lots, so you can have a grand opening of the restoration, or a display of the restoration that company has done, and then if there's, you know, aficionados that want to come up and watch and join, and then they can have food and drinks
Yeah.
for the show.
Will there be any full-time employees that are stationed
No.
there?
No.
So other than the maybe 12 days a year, the building will be empty, except for maybe the short-term rental people upstairs, if they're there for a week?
Yeah, basically. It's not going to generate a lot of traffic.
Mm-hmm.
We don't anticipate doing short-term rentals as far as visitors to Monterey renting it.
It would be only your clients.
Trying to keep it associated with the cars. We're a consortium of restorers,
Uh-huh.
all from California, mostly from Southern California. And the typical venue is, you know, you meet at Bob's Big Boy and you bring the car there and people come and they have a sandwich, or it's kind of like a cars and coffee,
Uh-huh.
or they go out and they'll rent a lobby of a hotel and they show off their vehicles. But like I said, no one's ever done this before, so we're the first. And hopefully it'll be successful, and we don't bother too many people.
Interesting niche.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But to answer your one question about working on cars, if there is an interest with Laguna Seca, what would probably happen is an owner of a car company who's racing could bring their vehicles and store them there in the covered garages. And then they would have, basically you're renting the building, you're renting the parking, you're renting the covered garages, and you're renting the 2-3 bedroom executive apartments on the second floor.
To the
So
to the Laguna Seco event.
it's a possibility. Not got a lot of feedback from Laguna Seca folks yet, but that's a possibility. And there may be somebody out there wrenching on a car after a race day, but most of the time they store their cars on the site.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Maki.
Yeah, so thank you for presenting everything. I think I have a kind of a clear idea of what you're doing. I think my questions are similar to, I guess, Gary's concerns. So with the short-term rentals, like Gary was saying, there's only one permit left currently right now. Now there could be two. So if you do want to turn these 2 or 3 bedroom apartments into short-term rentals, the odds of you obtaining a permit's probably slimmer to none. And then on top of that, what I do know, or we know as a commission in a city, is that they want to give these permits out to obtain revenue and collect TOT, right? So if you're only renting a couple times a month, or there's some months where you're not renting at all, that's where the city has the power to kind of take that short-term rental permit from you, because you're not bringing in the revenue and they're not collecting the TOT, right? So that's just a little knowledge for you there.
It's a possibility that, you know, if you have an empty building, why couldn't somebody use it and generate some income?
Yeah.
My understanding with other cities that I've talked to was they have actually short-term rental permits, commercial, mixed use, and residential. And on the commercial, it lends more towards the hotel, like lodging side. I think here we're just talking about residential.
Right.
But there could be a possibility of a mixed use short-term rental, which
Okay.
you guys, this would be the first.
Right. And then, so I want to understand a little bit more about downstairs. It's essentially like a museum, essentially, you were saying, right?
It could be.
Right. Okay. And then, you were saying you were going to generate roughly your numbers 350 to 400,000 a year. So how does your business, how does it generate that much revenue? What are you guys selling?
Well, you're basically, when you want to go up there and you're going to show a car, you're renting the whole structure. You're renting the parking, you're renting the parking structures outside, and that has a fee to it. And Car Week, Maserati rented a house for a week down in Pebble Beach last year for $250,000.
Right.
Aston Martin 2 years ago rented a lobby and 12 parking spaces up in Carmel Valley for $450,000. So Car Week would probably generate the bulk of it.
Right. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
And then
Yeah.
the remainder of it would be the short-term rentals.
Got it.
If we see there's a need for it and it helps the city and it wouldn't hurt us, yeah, we would advertise it.
Got it. And then in regards to one of the variances you're asking for, because it's zone C1, it requires a total of 20 parking spaces. And so you guys are only proposing 18. So that's one of the variances you guys are asking for us is to, because of the way you structured everything, right? You're only going to have 18, correct? Which is, yeah,
That would be correct.
Okay.
If it stays that size, yeah.
got it. Okay.
I think the code actually calls for just covered parking, like a parking structure, like
Okay.
a carport,
Awesome. Thank you.
and that would increase our parking.
Okay. Great.
Commissioner Panay?
Yes, hi.
Hi.
Interesting project.
Oh,
and-
thank you.
And I'm trying to, like my colleagues, understand what the different pieces of it are. So the current use of the building is,
I'm sorry.
what's the current use of the building?
It's empty now. It's been empty for several years.
Okay.
Yeah, it was designed originally as a telecom building,
Mhm.
and they had very few offices, and it's mainly designed to hold telecom equipment and run IT equipment. And then that was sold out, and after they sold out, that was the colonel who moved in there, who I bought it from, and he had employees that worked for the government. So it wasn't open office space. It was office space, but it wasn't open office space. So what they would do is they would do like war games or war projections, and then they'd feed back to the government. So it was everything they were doing was all top secret.
Mhm.
Yeah.
DoD type of work. Okay, okay, interesting. So, as a follow-up, we're talking about demand and you're telling us that the bulk of it might come from things like Car Week, that when people come into town to demo or show off restorations that they've done, and we've seen beautiful work being done on that front. They often will go, say, for example, in a parking lot of a hotel and get their people up there and cordon out an area where the car is. What would prevent them from continuing to do that? I mean, in your business model, what would make them choose to go towards your what you're offering instead?
I'm sure you've all been around during Car Week, and there's a lot more visitors than there are venues. And you see people like going down towards Big Sur, the last gas station. You know, Ferrari rents that and puts 10 Ferraris for people to drive by and can take a look at them. So there's a need for available space for car companies or restoration companies to show their wares. And that I believe Car Week alone, that'll generate a lot of interest.
I see. Okay. That was my question about demand, current use. I also was wondering in working on the plans that you, the set of drawings that you produced for us, how did you determine the size requirements for, like, say, for example, the show area or the area where people might gather if you have some kind of a venue event type of thing?
So the goal was the existing building kind of limits what we can and can't do. There's two shear walls down the center of the building, one on each side of the existing lobby. And they really limit what you can and can't do with the building. So one side, what we're thinking is we could have, you have your main lobby, and then the one side would be, we can have a little catering kitchen. So it won't be where they actually prepare food. It's just where they store food and then take it out to some tables and chairs and little meet and greet area. And then the center would be just a basic show lobby. And then the other side would be more of a car sale, so that we could bring a car in there. And if a certain car company has 2 new models that they want to sell, they bring both models in on that side. But it's because of the existing structure of the building, we're limited to what we can do with that building. And that's why we need to have the extra space.
That the reason why I'm asking is that, as my colleague just brought up, you're above by 2 parking spaces, and we understand that the function of the building might be different than what these calculations are intended for. At the same time, if we grant a permit, it's granted for the condition that it's granted for no matter. So if the use changes down the line, it can become a problem. So we have to be cognizant of that. But I was looking at your plan, and if you just shrank the front a little bit, you wouldn't need those 2 extra space, right? It's 1 per 300. So it wouldn't be that hard to kind of pull it back so that there is a little bit less traffic. And that's why I was asking about which specs did you look at for determining your room sizes?
It's the structural walls. The structural walls go from the main entry and they go all the way back to the back wall.
Yeah.
And there is literally a 4-foot walkway between the structural walls right now.
Yeah.
So we need that extra room to push out so that we take and create a venue for either the sales and or for the dining area. That's why we need the extra space. Yeah, we need to, just to get a car in there, you have to have a 10-foot path. And right now they have a non-structural structural wall that's hindering the location where we can get a 10-foot path in there. Structural walls we're not touching.
Of course, you can't touch the structure that's already there, but
Yeah.
it's what you're pushing out that I'm asking if it could be pulled back just a few feet, then you would be able to not fall into the extra
Yeah.
variance requirements, basically. Yeah.
So the building isn't even across the front. It already steps back. So the previous developer, in working with the previous planning commission back in the 80s, they determined what the FAR was, and they determined what usable space they want. And typical real estate developer wants to build as much building as he can for the land that they own. And so that portion, so it'd be if I call the ocean the west, would be the east side or towards Salinas. That portion already steps back about 12 feet. So there isn't a lot of room over there now. That's why we need to be able to pull it out so we can make that our showroom side. And the showroom side, there could be 2-3 cars there. And then they'll have a place to have a conference table where they can sit and talk about the cars. It'll have displays, what type of carpet, what kind of paint, what kind of design that they want their car to look like. And that's why, and then so half of that's going to be that space, and then the other half will be just static car display.
Some kind of a car design studio to show that.
Car design studio, exactly.
Okay.
And because of the design,
Questions?
because of the design of the building, we need the 40 feet, and out of that 40 feet, 25 feet of that is concrete wall.
Commissioner Wood.
I have a question about what kind of capacity do you envision, or can this place hold?
We haven't done so I haven't done that count.
Just,
But it could hold, comfortably 30 people.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
30 people.
30? Oh,
Yeah. When they had the offices designed, I think their office count was 12.
okay. So you're planning on small events, not like,
Small events. Yeah, I would
Okay.
love to have a bigger building and a lot more, like, double the
Uh-huh.
land and make it really nice, but
okay.
we're limited on we're limited on what is available,
Hmm.
especially in the beautiful city of Delray Oaks. Nothing comes up.
Yeah.
And down in the commercial zone, you have the Moose Lodge, you have the pool, you have some auto body plate repair places, you have the post office down there, tow truck guy. So it's kind of tucked in the small spot. But yeah, I don't see very big venues there. We're not going to have. The goal is not to have like where you rent a golf course and have everybody come look at cars.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, we just
So
don't have that.
it's an elite group. You're just,
It's a very small group.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. And, by the way, nice, I do like the design.
Oh, thank
That's
you.
a nice, yeah, a nice change. That'll be a nice change.
Thank you. Yeah, the existing design's got that 80s box, and
Yeah.
I want to try to tie it into in the Monterey Bay with the Spanish.
Okay, thank you.
And it's
Thank you.
more, the scale becomes, it scales it down some, so it feels more like a residential type of height.
Yeah,
So that's good too.
that's kind of the goal. It's a big building. It's a small building, but it's a big, tall building sitting up on a hill.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it looks monumentous, but it's really not inside.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I have a question for the city attorney. So he's now talking about the building being rented for events. Does that change any of what we're seeing here?
As far as I know, there's no event restrictions in the municipal code, so something that you could, working with conditional use permit or something like that, but as I'm aware, there's no separate requirement for events or event permit.
Thank you. So you mentioned, I guess I wasn't clear. So will there be any actual car work go on in that?
No, that's not the design.
Okay.
Think of it a term as a wedding where a group of people come in, they rent a building, they have their event, and then they leave. So yeah, we certainly wouldn't do any restoration there.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I have nothing more. So go out for public comment. Anybody that has
Thank you for your time.
has comment, you have a limit of 3 minutes.
My name is Helen Birdsong and I live in the Oaks condominiums. And thank you for listening to me. First of all, the building currently is just a tad over 7,000 square feet, and you're asking to double it almost. It's 7,610 square feet, and he's asking for a 7,000 square foot addition. So it's double the size. Secondly, he wants a lot of ordinances to accommodate the cars. Thirdly, the gentleman who owned it, who he purchased from, didn't put it up for sale till August of 2025. A zoning change with city council, normally city councils notify the neighbours, and their property line joins our property. We are one property as a condominium, as a HOA. We're not individual units, even though one person, Wardell, was contacted by a letter. Nobody else in the whole complex was contacted. There's 150 people in 150 units, and most are owner occupied. When it comes to your election time, you want to knock on our doors, you want to attend our meetings, you want to put yourself out there to vote for you. When something monumental like this is happening, it's like there's a seal on it. I receive planning commissions meetings every month. I didn't receive this one. I'm shocked. The person that informed me, it was actually Wardell, and said I could speak on his behalf. I just think it's a neighbourly thing to do, to have actually notified us. It may not be that we disagree with it. We may welcome it with open arms. But to do it this way is just not okay, as far as I'm concerned. Short-term rentals. It's news to me you've got one available. The other month when I checked, there was none available. So I believe you've got one available. But if we're going to have a few units, again, I agree with what you've said, Vince, that, it's not going to bring the revenue in you want anyway. I think this should have been open wide for discussion, not 4 months of nobody knowing about it. The other thing that concerns me as well is Denise Duffy and Associates is a consultant for the city. Is this gentleman here as that, or is he representing the new owner of the complex, George Maguire?
Denise Duffy and Associates.
So he's representing the city?
Yes.
Okay, so he's not their attorney. Okay. And so, I think it has to be put out. I think there should be a model or plans that people can come in and see. And I think you should present it to the Homeowners Association and be open and upfront. If you're not doing anything underhand, that's the normal procedure for above board.
Thank you.
kind of long. Good evening. My name is Daniel Alvarez. I'm with the NorCal Carpenters Union. I represent members on Santa Cruz, Monterey, and San Benito County. And this is a good project. And I understand that bringing outside companies sometimes makes sense, and they can bring a good experience. But you also need to think about the community, our local workforce. Too often, what happens is a company comes with their own crew. They get the job done, they leave, they take the jobs, and they take the money. That doesn't do any good for our local workforce or our local economy. As you consider this project, I ask you to keep our community in mind. That means hiring local contractors, supporting apprenticeship programs so people can get into trades, and make sure workers have things like healthcare and fair working condition. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any more comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment. We'll come back to comments by commissioners. I'll start with Commissioner Krieger.
Yeah, it was kind of funny because I was actually asking a city council member a few weeks ago about big white building, like what's up with it? So, and then this showed up a couple weeks later, and there's my answer. Yeah, I like the picture too. I think it was remember Councilman Upney that talked about how good it looks, or maybe it was Miss Wood, but yeah, it looks good. I like it. I mean, what the big white box up there, been there forever. It's kind of yeah, it's not too attractive. I was inside it when it was still the simulation people. It's just nothing special, you know. So it looks like maybe we're going to do something with it. I'm surprised, and I'm sure the city will look into it. I'm surprised, Helen, to hear about your difficulty not getting it. I obviously get this, but I also got multiple emails, and everything on Nextdoor was lighting up all the time. So hopefully we can figure out where that got short circuited, because I certainly got a lot of notices about it besides the binder being dropped off. So hopefully we can figure out where that fell through. Yeah, I don't know. I know the parking is an issue for, the Oaks. My mother-in-law used to live in the Oaks, so I'm familiar with that. Used to have to go visit her and had to find spots, and a lot of times had to park down the street and walk in. But I don't think it doesn't sound like we're adding a lot, and I do think it's going to be a big improvement for what we have now. And any tax dollars we have is good tax dollars at this point, because the pet place moved off the Garden Road. We finally got the kitchen filled with bagels and donuts and spas. That was great. And then as soon as they come in, the pet people leave. The veterinarian leaves. So we can put something there, even and it does sound like it's sort of something kind of nice, not just your run of the mill business. So it might be a little something that puts Stellar Oaks on the map for some special place to go, and that's not a bad thing. I think we do need to sort out the if we need the short-term rental permits for the two apartments, or if it's a conditional use because it's in a commercial zone, that's something outside that. But we definitely want to get that cleared up before we go too far with it, just to make sure it's not an issue. You don't want to build them and not be able to use them. But I don't know. I think, to me, I'm kind of favorable towards it, because I think it's going to be understand looking at especially the feet where they're pushing out. It's not really going to, it's not certainly not blocking anyone's view or impinging on anyone. It's not I think it's going to make it's going to make a nice looking building. I think it'd be a nice addition. At least that's what I've heard so far. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Motti.
Thank you. So it sounds like the three issues here are short-term rental, which Gary has already discussed. We can certainly approve the building of it, but we're not the place to say, yes, you can have as many short-term rentals as you want there. That's not our role. So I'll leave that off. Parking is second, and I know we received a letter from the Oaks regarding parking. And their concern that even in the previous owner, sometimes the guest parking spots in the Oaks was taken by the folks who inhabited that building. So I know parking could be an issue for you during your events. If we look at what we received as Exhibit 1, which is the aerial photo, and this is you here, and here's the Oaks right there, right next to you. And most of their guest parking is right there. In addition to that, I happen to go to this building a couple of times a week, which is the Bridge Center. And their parking is a huge issue in this complex. And in fact, the Bridge Center has to pay $400 a month to the Moose Lodge in order to use their parking spots. And so parking is a big issue in this one too. So I would feel more comfortable about parking if you had designated a parking plan for your events and either had worked directly with the Oaks if that looked like you were going to use theirs, or if you were telling them, we will never use yours, we're going to monitor parking. And also with this center down here. And maybe you would need to also work with the Moose Lodge, but I know the Bridge Center has events every day of the week, typically till about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'd be more comfortable if you brought forward a plan of how you had planned to do the parking. So that's my parking issue. The next one then has to do with your request for your variance of the setback. And I have to say that this is an issue that we as a planning commission probably struggle the most with in any of the projects that come to us when we're asked for a variance on our setbacks. So here we're looking at setbacks for commercial of 35 feet and residential of 20. And you're even pushing beyond the residential of 20. So I have some concerns about that. It makes it really hard for us because we have to interpret what those unique characteristics are of the site and your purpose to see if it actually meets our responsibility of meeting the requirements that we're given to be able to allow a setback. So I'm pretty uncomfortable with the amount of setback that you're requesting. We have on some occurrences allowed a limited amount of push. I'm also seeing that a big portion of what you're using is that lobby portion and a little bit more in the front. And I'm not quite understanding what you're talking about of the existing structure and be able to get your cars in and out of there. So maybe that requires a little bit more discussion. But at this point, I'm pretty uncomfortable with the amount of setback that you're requiring. I might be more comfortable if you were somewhere in between the 20 and 35 of the 20 foot of our residence and the 35 of our commercial, and came back with us with maybe a little bit modified where you can work with us on that setback. Thank you.
Commissioner Lodge?
Yeah, I think I'm with Gary on this one. I feel pretty comfortable with it. I mean, I understand the whole setback issue. It's you are encroaching a lot, right? So like the commercial 35 feet, and I think believe you're at proposing 17.9, so you're essentially cutting it in half, right? So it is a big ask, a fairly large ask. But with that being said, I don't think this is going to be a high volume place, and it is kind of set back, right, in that area of Delray Oaks. It's not a high traffic area, and yeah, I just from what you're explaining is it's not going to be a everyday thing. You don't have full-time employees every day, so the only time the parking is really going to be an issue is when you are having those events, right? So, which isn't going to be, like you said, could be 4 times a year to start, right? 3 or 4 times a year. It could be once a month, right? Once it starts, building, once the business starts building. But yeah, I think just the biggest concern is the setback overall. For me, it's not the parking. It's not the 2 spots. So Um, that's what I have to say.
Commissioner Panay.
Like it too. I like the concept, and I also think that the look of it would be good for Delray Oaks. I brought up the concern about setbacks earlier, and as we talk, and I like your idea of a parking kind of a plan, and so that we can address or have some strategies in place that would be incorporated in our approval that would alleviate the potential issues that have arisen and that may continue to arise. I used to have a condo and we dealt with that all the time. And so where neighbor commerces would come and park in our guest parking space. And we had to hire individual to contract with a towing company who would come and tow these people away that didn't have the visitor permit type of given to them by the association. So, and I'm looking at that, you're asking for 12 extra feet up front, right? And when we talked with you in trying to determine how many people do you think might gather in there or where the measurement came from, I understand you need a space. I understand your constraints very well. I studied architecture, so I understand that. But I'm wondering if, you know, again, if the setback could be addressed, because if it's addressed by just a few feet in the front, instead of 12, say go for 8 or 9 or whatever it is, you shave off the extra space that would lead you to not need these 2 extra parking space variants, right? And so I think that I would encourage you to come back because it's an exciting project. I think it would be good for the city to be able to have a livelier venue there. I think it would actually be, if it was my condo next door, I would like it because I think it brings it down to a more homey feel and it ups it in terms of the service it would offer. It's an upscale service that you want to offer. So in that sense, I would like to see it come back. Basically, that's my opinion. But I want you to know, I think it's a good direction. I also have questions that may be beyond the scope of what I'm doing now, but about the different permissions we'd be giving and what that allows one long-term. So if we allow you to have these conditional permit for short-term rentals, for example, does that commit us to something bigger than what we're talking about today? And so, see, I have questions that are kind of like in that range, and that would probably be more for you. But that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, so I'm assuming this, you need to push it back as far as you are to fit 3 cars in that one area. Is that where you got the square footage from? The showroom? So if it was like, so is there any wiggle room there? Or is there any wiggle room for the? Okay. And then, I actually with the setback don't really have that much of a problem because you're on it's above the retaining wall. Well, you have a retaining wall there anyway, and it's already pushing out, so it's not, you don't walk in front of it. So I don't have a problem with that. And as far as the signage goes, you have to come back for signage. Okay. So maybe there can be some parking signage that can go up. That might be a solution to the parking issue.
Sure, we can submit some parking.
Okay.
Some parking submittal with signage.
Yeah, maybe in the Oaks, don't park here, maybe a person, if there is an issue. It might be something.
The building as a whole has a lack of frontage. And we weren't sure by the way the code reads on the network that if there is a specific landscape requirement for a half-acre site.
I don't believe so.
So without being able to have a sign up on the building like the sign here, we'd have to do some kind of a concrete sign or some kind of maybe a parallel to the road sign.
So you have to come
So
back with that.
we just said, well, let's find out what they will allow us to do first, and then we can come back up with signage.
Okay.
But we're happy to work with you.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, the overall design, and it's what a concept.
Thank you.
Yeah, and how did you find the bill? I mean, were you looking in this area?
You know, we were looking at some buildings on the other side of the airport in Monterey,
Okay.
and they had just passed a change of their commercial zone because all the commercial buildings on that side, which were no longer rented, completely vacant, and because of COVID, people just weren't coming back, so they're converting some over to apartments and converting some over to condos,
Mm-hmm.
and they're doing probably about 5 or 6 of them have been approved over there.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But this is besides a much better site.
It's in Del Rio.
So when they came up when we noticed it was for sale,
Uh-huh.
it had been it'd been vacant for a year and a half, maybe 2 years. The colonel was winding down his business probably 4 years ago, and they didn't have a lot of people going in and out for a period there, and then he was just trying to lease it and couldn't lease it. The only people that really would lease a building like that is somebody who has a bigger commercial building and then wants to downsize their office to save on costs.
Mhm.
And there just isn't a lot of that anymore.
Okay.
But there is a big need for residential. And on the short-term rental, you know, we could pursue that as well to where there's going to be a lot of downtime, and mostly the weekends is when we have events. And if somebody came in for a week, including a weekend, we're certainly willing to look at that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have a problem with the project. I think the setback is not really an issue, because it's up on that hill and I mean, it's different than any other lot I can think of around. As far as the parking's concerned, there's on-street parking, that's city property. It's open to be parked. I mean, I know.
There's quite a.
Yeah, I mean, I was there the other day, there was nothing on either side of the street, and it's, you know, maybe close to 100 yards.
Oh, I thought it belonged to the, sorry, other range.
No, it's city property.
It's city
Right.
property.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't belong to the condo association. Okay.
And as far as during your events, I would say to work with the homeowners association, the signage that's up there, in my estimation, that says that parking is limited to the condos is insufficient. That some other signage could be put there that's more prominent, and maybe some A-frame signs during your events, and that when you communicate with your attendees that, you know, to not park in the parking for the condos.
Chairman, can I follow on that real quick?
Mhm.
You know, and this again, maybe for the city attorney, one thing that had occurred to me, I forgot to mention, was in the use permit, maybe we could say, I don't know, maybe we could say, put a restriction in that you need a person up there, because that's really what you need, is just a person there during the events going, nope, turn around, go down there and park, right? Don't, you know, so I don't know if that's something we could potentially look at for the use permit.
We would do that normally.
Yeah.
We've also talked to the Moose Lodge about renting some of their lot for events and doing a shuttle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like the look of it. I think it's going to dress that area up and get something going in there, and instead of having an empty space. So, you know, at this point, yeah, I'm in favor of it. Yeah, and the apartment thing, I mean, if you're not short-term rentals, you can rent them for a week. Doesn't matter if there's anything going on in your facility, if there's short-term rental available. Or you could rent it for more than 30 days if then it's not,
Yeah.
doesn't fall into those rules. Okay. So I'll entertain a motion. So we have 3 things here, actually 4. Architectural review 26-02, variance 26-01, which includes the addition of the parking garage and the front setback, and the conditional use permit for the apartment in the C1 zone. I'll go to the city attorney. I think I'm going to take these one by one.
I said, Your Honor's discretion.
Okay.
If I might.
Yeah, please.
To Mr. Gruber, the question about the short-term rental, generally, that's a permit that's applied through at City Hall on the counter. So I don't think that would be before you here.
Right.
But with respect to the other applications, those are properly before you. So I guess the point is the short-term rental application and grant could come after if you chose to approve this.
Right, well, I guess my question was, would this fall outside of our normal established short-term rental permitting process since it's in a commercial area? Does that change? it?
No, the permit application would be submitted to the city and the city would, match that application according to current regulations. And if it met the criteria and was consistent with the requirements, then it could be approved.
Okay, so with that given, let's address the architectural review on 26-02. I'd entertain a motion to approve or
I'll make a motion that we approve
I'm
the,
sorry, which one are we approving?
architectural review,
the first one.
26-02,
Okay,
architectural review.
Which is what?
which is which?
Yeah, which
Which
is
one
which?
is that?
It's the architectural review for the building, for the changes to the facade and the exterior.
Okay, so
Oh,
does that
okay.
include the whole floor plan?
Well, that's part of the,
I'm trying, yeah, I mean, are we, there's tree variance, and we just found out that we don't really have to work with the conditional permit part, so there's two variants. So are
we
we,
do have to work with conditional use.
okay,
Yeah.
okay,
And
okay,
we can come back to that. This is
Okay.
just a motion for now. We'll come back for more discussion.
okay,
Okay?
okay.
So we have a first. We have a second.
Okay.
Thank you. Further discussion, come back to Commissioner Krieger if you have further discussion on this. Let's start with just the architectural review.
Right. No, I don't think I have anything else to add. Thanks.
Commissioner Motley?
No further.
No further questions.
No further questions.
No.
Okay. So I'll call for roll call vote for architectural review 26-02.
Commissioner Krieger,
Aye.
Commissioner Motley,
Aye.
Commissioner Wood,
Aye.
Commissioner Ganey,
Aye.
Commissioner Munchy,
Aye.
Haber.
Aye. Okay. Now to the variance. So the variance covers the parking and the short bar and the setback. So can I have a motion on variance 26-01?
Make a motion, we approve the variance number 26-01 as proposed.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I'll go for a roll call vote.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, we come back for discussion first.
Yeah,
Sorry.
discussion first.
Commissioner Krieger.
No, I mean, yeah, I guess it's the two parking spots don't particularly bother me. I went up there the other day. I saw pretty much what you saw. About halfway up was Jerry Graham cars, but after that was empty. There was a lot of parking there, and if long as they're proactive about keeping people out of the Oaks, then and I think the shuttle idea is an interesting idea. So I don't think the parking doesn't bother me too much. And as you were saying, I just looking at it, the setback is less of an issue because always, I don't know the 35. I'm not sure what the history is there. It seems somewhat arbitrary, but in that situation, we're not blocking anything. We're not cutting off someone's view, come around a corner, or I don't see a safety issue. So that one doesn't really bother me in this situation that much either. So that'd be my comments.
Commissioner Motley.
Yes, I would be happy to approve the variance for the parking if the applicant had a parking plan that they shared with both the Oaks and the other business at the other end of the street.
Commissioner Motley.
I think when it comes to the setback, it's more of a numbers things because you're just kind of cutting it in half. But like when I did drive by, I mean Gary, you're right. I mean it does, and so are you, Ann. It does sit far back enough to where it's not a safety issue. You're not obstructing anything. You're not, like I said, it's just not a safety issue. So, I would be okay approving it.
Commissioner Benet?
Uh, For me, the setback is a little bit more of an issue because because of, we're, farther than the residential approvals we've been giving. And in that sense, it's not so much that for that specific lot, it's a problem, but it's more like we're starting to set precedents of creeps. And so for the long-term thinking for the city, is that the direction we want to go towards? I don't know that that should be what directs our approval or unapproval of this specific project. Because, the reasons why setbacks are what they are, there's a variety of reasons, but you think about, is it shading people or areas that would not want to have that shade? If it's a single story setback, it's not a problem. And in that area, it's not a problem. And for safety, for sight, it's not a problem either. So I think that, I could go with it, but I do want to bring to our attention the fact that we have to be careful with the precedents we're setting.
Great. Sure.
Yeah, I think just the location of it, the setback isn't an issue for me either. And I like the parking plan idea. Keeping that, yeah. And that, I don't know if that goes with the sign or when that would come through.
Okay, and for me, as far as the setback is concerned, I don't have a problem with it. I think it's, it's up on that hill and it's out of the way. And as far as setting a precedent, that's the point we always make, especially with residential. We just had one recently that we had to finally go to terms and we compromised with the homeowner.
I know you don't like to talk, but how does it affect coming out of the Oaks? What's our vision? How does it cut our vision back for exiting or entering the Oaks condos?
Well,
That's got to be
you're out of turn, but I will answer that you can see that with the red flagging that's there, how it's going to affect it. And we did look at that. As far as the parking plan is concerned, I don't know whether we write that into the approval.
We can.
Can I make an amendment to my,
Let's see what.
Yeah.
This is for the use permit?
Yes, well, the variance.
The variance.
So you could do the variance or maybe as a condition to the use permit, to approve the use permit, give some direction. The variance really is existing, what's proposed, what's the unique feature here. So to my mind, it's better placed than mitigations, if you will, the conditions on.
Okay, so if you want to amend your motion.
no, I'll wait and think that, I'll wait and put it in the conditional use permit. That's
Okay,
probably a good
right.
place. That makes sense.
All right. Okay, I will go out for we went for a second, so I have, let's take a roll call
I
vote.
think we
sorry.
gotta- Aye.
Commissioner Benet?
Aye.
Commissioner Wood?
Aye.
Commissioner Gray?
Aye.
Commissioner Machi?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, so variance 26-01 passes unanimously. Now conditional use permit for the apartment in the C1 zone.
You do that. It's your parking plan.
Well,
You can put in the condition for your parking plan.
but this is the conditional use of the residential though, which isn't really related to the parking plan.
Oh, okay.
But
Can we go back and amend the variance that we just did? Sure. Okay.
So we won't put it in the variance then? Okay.
Yeah.
Then all right. I propose that we amend the approval for the variance to 26-01 to require a parking plan within 30 days.
Well, I
Or
think that might be a little soon.
don't need to, okay.
Maybe put something in there about working with the.
Okay, so just to establish a parking plan with the city staff. Okay.
Need to do anything more with that, or is that sufficient?
Probably vote on the.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So go for a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Greenberg?
Aye.
Commissioner Motti?
aye.
Commissioner Wood?
Aye.
Commissioner Clay,
Aye.
Commissioner Tucci,
Aye.
Chairman Huber.
Aye. Okay. Now conditional use permit for the apartment in C1 zone. Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve CUP 26-01.
Do I have a second?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
You need a vote?
Aye.
Sorry.
Oh,
Or
roll
roll call?
Discussion for some.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Never mind. Go ahead. Commissioner Creed.
Nothing.
No discussion.
No.
No comment.
No comment.
Okay, and I have nothing more, so go for roll call vote for conditional use permit 26-01.
Commissioner Krieger,
Aye.
Commissioner Rowley,
Aye.
Commissioner Wood,
Aye.
Commissioner Clay,
Aye.
Commissioner Tucci,
Aye.
Chairman Huber.
Aye. Okay, so that everything passed unanimously. There's a 25-day appeal period. So that means that if you start any work before that 25 days, you might have to stop. But anyway, congratulations.
Good luck.
Okay, next up is
Brown Act.
our city attorney, Alex Lorca, is going to give us an overview on the Brown Act and commissioner roles.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Alex Lorca. I'm your city attorney. City manager asked me to just give you a quick refresher on the Brown Act and the role of the Planning Commission. So the Planning Commission, the city's municipal code has exactly 2 sections on what the Planning Commission is to do. And one of them just establishes the Planning Commission. And then section 2.20.020 says the Planning Commission shall have all the powers and perform the duties as in the government code provided, and it shall be the function and duty of the Planning Commission to prepare and adopt comprehensive long-term general plan for the visible development of the city, full stop. So naturally you're asking, well, what does the government code say? So the applicable government code that the Delray Oaks Municipal Code refers to is section 65103. And what you can glean from this really is that it is your job to assist with the general plan of the city and everything that trickles down. So the general plan of the city can be thought of as the constitution. All of your land use and planning stuff flows from that, whether it's master plans or special plans, zoning, the item you just heard, variances, anything to sort of implement the title and chapters of the municipal code with respect to planning. So I'll go through them quickly. These are edited down from the government code, but it's to prepare, review, and revise the general plan, to implement the general plan via things like specific plans and zoning, annually review the city's capital improvement program, promote public interest in and understanding of the general plan, consult with the public and third parties concerning implementation of the general plan, coordination with other public agencies, and perform other functions as the legislative body directs. For instance, conducting studies, for those of you that remember, occasionally the city council will say, listen, I really want a committee to look at this. Sometimes it's the finance committee, sometimes it's the planning commission. They want you to work things up and give them a recommendation. For those of you who are here, you were involved in the housing element and in a lot that went on there. So you're policymakers, you're sort of mini legislators, if you will. You're sort of between staff and the city council. And so really most of your work is to recommend things to the city council. There are some things that you approve, like you just did, but ultimately the power rests with the city council as they're the appeal authority that most of your decisions go through. So with that, you work, I know, a lot with Karen as your planning commission coordinator, and that's really the person you are supposed to work with, is to ask questions of Karen and really make her your point of contact. I think John Gurton probably fields things as well too, but really Karen is your person there, and from there she can delegate to staff, who based on her press of business and workflow, to get answers for you folks or provide documents or whatever it may be. So that's just your role as a planning commissioner. There's not a lot of meat in the law on that. It's just It really does focus on the general plan, which again is the big planning document. The housing element you just went through is one of multiple elements in the general plan. It's the one that has the most state oversight. It's the one that actually has triggers involved that you have to update it. I think our general plan, the other elements have been around since the 90s, maybe. So there's not an impetus from the state to amend things like the circulation element or, traffic element, things like that. Any questions on that? I know you folks have been doing this for a while. The other thing that I'll talk about is the Brown Act. These are whittled down from my normal AB 1234 slides, which are very extensive. And that's the 2-hour training that you have to do every 2 years. Unfortunately, tonight's talk won't give you any credits on that. But
Can't you talk?
I'll filibuster and go very slow. So the Brown Act, I know, is something that is can be a sticky wicket. You always sort of have it in mind, but some of the technical rules are fact intensive. So my advice always is to sort of have it in mind. And if you have any questions or doubts about it, always call Karen or call me, and we can talk through and say, am I allowed to go talk to this person about this? Or I talked to the other commissioner about that. What are the limitations here? And we can go through that. So tonight, just a few slides to give you the high level flavor of it. And again, just to help you raise your antenna if things, come across. So the general rules found in the Brown Act: all meetings of the legislative body of a local agency shall be open and public, and all persons shall be permitted to attend any meeting of the legislative body of a local agency except as otherwise provided in this chapter. Next slide, please. And so who's covered by the Brown Act? Well, because I'm here talking to you, you're covered by the Brown Act. So the legislative body is necessarily covered. That's your city council. But committees and commissions like the Planning Commission that are fixed by charter or have a exclusive jurisdiction over a subject matter are subject to the Brown Act. You compare that with a hiring committee. Let's say the city council appoints two of the five to, as they did a few years ago, to do some initial interviews with the city manager. Those aren't Brown Act bodies. They can happen outside of a public meeting. But in this case, because you are chartered by our municipal code, you are covered by the Brown Act and therefore have to abide by it. So meetings must happen in public. What is a meeting? A meeting is where a majority of members, not even necessarily a quorum, are present. So in this case, it'd be 4 of 7 at the same time and location, including teleconference location, to hear, discuss, deliberate, or take action on any item that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the legislative body. So this wall has it correct. It's all windows. All 4 walls should have windows. If you are going to get together 4 or more of you to talk, it's got to be a public meeting. It's got to be under the lights. Karen's got to be there. They've got to be taking minutes. It's showtime. It's got to be a public meeting. Sometimes when folks are wrapping up meetings or you're chatting in the parking lot or, you see each other at Safeway or something like that, it's always, it's a delicate balance there. And one of the things I want to stress is that even if 4 people are talking in the parking lot after a planning commission meeting and you're talking about George Jacksaw's garage sale that's going to be happening, to the person driving by, they don't know that. And so it's always, the appearance is almost just as important as the actual what's going on. So just be very mindful. And I know it's a very tight-knit community. People see each other down in the park. They have CAG, there's just a lot of things. So just always be very mindful that it's the perception that's just as important. Another way that meetings can sometimes happen inadvertently are what they call serial meetings, and those come in 2 flavors. There is one that, let's say, Gary calls Luis, and Luis calls Ann, and Ann calls Mike, and next thing you know, they've got this, they're all agreed on something, and sort of a decision's been made, and they've discussed this outside of a public meeting. You have to stay away from that. One of the places where I see this is sometimes people are trying to get agenda items on an agenda and they end up calling all of their fellow planning commissioners to say, hey, what do you think about putting this on the agenda? And by the time you've done that, you sort of have had discussion with everybody about that. The other one would be talking with Karen about something or one of your constituents. Let's say it is George Jackshaw and he says he wants to come and talk to each one of you. And he says, well, Ann, I talked to Louise and I talked to Gary and I talked to Mike Hayworth and they're all on board whatever. Now you have an intermediary that's facilitating a hub and spoke meeting. And I don't mean to throw George under the bus. It's just, I know he wouldn't have an objection. He's a great guy. No collective concurrence, so you don't have to convince people. It's just the mere fact that you're doing it with with four or more. Of course, every time folks get emails from me, it's always please don't reply all, because I think that's where if you reply all and say this is a great idea, or all of a sudden all of you know what's going on outside of a public meeting. So it's really critical that that not happen. What is not a meeting? Let's say the gentleman that was just here invites all of you to the grand opening of the car event. Social, ceremonial events where you go to a conference, a seminar, community meeting. Let's say all of you go to the Seaside City Council meeting because of some proposed development out in Seaside. That's allowable, provided that you don't talk about city business when you're there. And it's one of the more frequent calls I get is, hey, we're all, I know there's going to be 5 of us at city council meeting at the former Fort Ord, workshop open house that they're having. You can go, but you just can't talk about city business while you're there. Likewise, asking questions of Karen. You all get your packets and you say, I've got a question on this variance thing. You can talk to staff about things. You can talk to your constituents about things. It's just, you've got to be careful that it never amounts to a majority of you folks talking about something outside of a meeting. That's where you get in trouble. Next slide, please. The types of meeting, generally, it's a regular meeting here. You guys meet once a month, and that is, the 72-hour notice in your packets. Special meetings, Karen, I don't know if you guys ever do special meetings, maybe. Actually, not so much. Yeah, sometimes you see it in the form of a special study session, or because noticing of the right, you want to add one thing that missed the 72-hour noticing window. And then an emergency meeting is something that can happen, but it's got to be a true emergency in order for you folks to meet. It's generally more of a city council thing. Teleconference meetings are something that I get asked about. Generally, as you know, the old school teleconferencing rules, you had to post wherever you were if you were going to call into a meeting. I always tell the story of a council member I had that was in Italy for a wedding, really wanted to participate, woke up in the middle of the night, went to the lobby, put out the agenda, and maybe someone in the lobby wanted in Italy to opine on the council meeting. They could have. It has to be noted on the agenda where they're going to be, and the location has to be open to the public. So this hypothetical is one that I received. Someone was going on a cruise during a council meeting, and could they call into the meeting if they post the agenda on board and allow anyone on the ship to comment? The answer is no. No, because it's not the general public. It's only those lucky enough to be on the cruise. So, those are the kind of things the stories I like, because they help you sort of remember things. Sort of new is just cause and emergency circumstances. This is different than your teleconferencing. You don't have to allow the public into your living room if you have COVID, and you don't have to post the agenda on your front door. There are 2 circumstances in which you can participate, remotely. One is just cause, where you're caregiving for a family member. There's a contagious illness, physical or mental disability, travel while on business of a legislative body or another state or local agency. I have had this with council members that work. They are at, let's just say you were on the city council and they sent you to the League of Cities or something like that. You're traveling on city business, you can do this. If your work sends you, I have a council member in a different jurisdiction that works for a national bank and is frequently calling in from all parts of the country. And you can sort of see the COVID leftovers of this contagious illness, that type of stuff. The other one, which we just had in a different jurisdiction last week, was the emergency circumstance. There was a death in the family, in which case there's a physical or family medical emergency that prevents a member from attending in person. You have to, as soon as you can, let the agency know, and you have to let your fellow planning commissioners know. And technically, they need to approve it. I'd be a cold-hearted group that said no. But technically that's something that has to be done. So you can see the Brown Act sort of getting with the modern times a little bit. I think COVID had a lot to do with it, where the legislator said, look, there's a lot of people that have to caregive. There's a lot of people that have to travel. No one should go to a meeting and spread flu and things like that. So it's just a little bit more of a recognition of the realities of life. For those two, just cause and emergency circumstance, you have to participate remotely, both visually and audio. And the public has to be able to participate in real time. If there's any technical difficulties, shut the meeting down until those can be resolved. They have to vote and participate through both audio and visual. Disclosure of other individuals 18 years and older in the relationship. So far, what I've seen is, oh, my spouse is here traveling with me. They're in the room, you know, but that's it. So they just sort of want to make sure that, you know, there's not a constituent, or, you know, I don't know what it might be, but, and then the quorum of the legislative body must participate in the city. So there's always going to be, you know, 4 of you at least physically in the city in order for people to participate remotely. Agendas, this is sort of Karen's bailiwick, and she knows these rules probably better than I do. 72-hour notice for the regular meeting, 24-hour notice for special meetings, and emergency meetings are, you know, those are, again, true emergencies, stoppages, floods, fires, that type of stuff. I don't know that this body would be subject to a lot of those, but it's something to think about. Notice locations, you see it posted in the kiosk, it's got to be online. The notice content, the time and place, and then this is one that I do a lot of correcting on, brief general description of each item. A lot of times people say, we're going to talk about SB 481. Well, no one knows what that is, or AB 131, or CEQA update, or, you know, I don't know, four-tag trail. Well, does the average person sitting at home have enough notice to think to themselves, I'm going to go down there and talk because I think they're going to, you know, I know what they're talking about and I want to contribute to the conversation. The other thing that's really critical is, what is the proposed action? So if the proposed action is for the planning commissioner to receive a report on or discuss, then you can't take action on it, because the person sitting at home goes, yeah, that's all right, they're not going to take any action on it, I don't have to show up. So it's always critical, and Karen does a great job of, you know, really stating what you're going to be doing at the meeting. Agendas rule, no action or discussion permitted on matters not on the agenda. There are some minor exceptions. For you folks, I think that one of the critical ones is if someone during general public comment comes up and starts talking about something that's not on the agenda. Let's say it's the dog park. And Gary says, yeah, you know, I was just down there. And Luis says, yeah, we ought to do something. And Ann said, next thing you know, we're having a little meeting about something that wasn't on the agenda. So in those circumstances, that you can refer to staff for a quick answer. Hey, put it on a future agenda, or they can follow up with you offline. But that's the tricky one to watch out for. Next slide, please. Chair Hayworth does a good job of always remembering that the public's got to go, and I always try not to make it a big deal. I always try and give like a little nudge or something, so I don't look like I'm parenting the chair or the mayor or whatever it is. But they're both fabulous about giving the public their opportunity on every single item that comes before you. And I don't see that here, thank goodness. But you know, there are jurisdictions where people get up and berate and insult and make fun of and degrade, and luckily we don't have that here. That is their right, but it's not something that happens here, which is great. Next slide, right to the public. Can't be required to provide your name or any identification. If it's a sign-in sheet, it's got to say it's voluntary, right to privacy type things. ADA compliance is a must. Story I tell is, one time I had a client at a public agency when we were the Air Resources Control Board chambers, and the elevator went down and the meeting room was on the 2nd floor. So we were on the verge of canceling the meeting because we couldn't proceed. Luckily, someone thought to go throw the breaker and elevator came back on and we had it. Public has a right to record meeting. This was a lot more prevalent back in the day before it's recorded anyway, and it's on YouTube with better audio. right to record. They have a right to all materials. So sometimes you'll see folks come and deliver, a letter or, a schematic. If it's prepared by the city or someone on the planning commission, Karen's got to run and provide it right then and there. If it's a member of the public, it's sort of as soon as practicable. Most people pop up and make copies anyway. The idea there being that, the people of the public should have everything that you have in front of you when you're making your decisions. As a legislative body, you do have rights as well. And that usually is to prohibit disruptive conduct. So insulting you, calling you names is not true disruption. Courts have found that, when there's one famous case where someone came and dumped a huge pile of trash, which was getting in the way of people, making public comment and shouting profanities, and the court went out of its way to say that the profanity was protected. That was okay. That wasn't disruptive. But dumping a pile of trash such that people had to work around it and interfere with the meeting, that is something that where you can insist that they leave the chambers. And usually what happens is, passionate issues, they call a timeout, people get put outside, and those that weren't participating are let back in. I don't know that we've ever had such high drama here. Well, it's been a while, right? Next slide, please. Planning commissions usually don't go into closed session. You can go into closed session. Again, these are sunshine laws. Everything has to be done in public, but for a variety of reasons, usually around privacy concerns, attorney-client concerns, perhaps maybe the real property would be one in which if the city council wanted you to recommend what price and terms of leasing the garden center, let's say, would be, and they gave you that task, we could go into closed session and talk about that. And the theory there being we shouldn't give away our negotiating position by doing it in the public. So there are sort of some common sense reasons that not only city council, but the planning commission can go in closed session. And if we do, the important thing is that you've got to keep what happens in closed session confidential. So your constituents say to you, what did you decide in there? Why did you decide this way or whatever? That's something that you have to keep confidential. The attorney-client privilege, technically the city holds that, not any individual. So it would take the city voting to waive that. So just keep in mind that, even after you roll off the planning commission, what happened in closed session and confidential things remain confidential, and only the city as a whole has the right to waive that. Let's see, I think I have another slide or two. Brown Act enforcement. I don't know, maybe this is the scared straight slide, but there are criminal, the DA can bring criminal charges if they find willful violation of the Brown Act. People are doing things outside of public meetings in order to influence votes or make decisions. And the other one is civil, be by the district attorney or private citizens of the Brown Act. And one of the key considerations there is it carries attorney's fees. So if a citizen sues the city for Brown Act violation, they're vindicated, it does come with attorney's fees, and the city has to then pay their attorney's fees. So I know we do a good job. It's not something that we anticipate, but just be mindful that at least at the city council level, at least during probably more at election season, it's political detractors that usually bring Brown Act lawsuits or try and play gotcha with Brown Act violations. Again, planning commission doesn't, I think, have that level of attention on it. So those are some things to keep in mind. Again, I'm always available. If, the only thing I ask is that if you have questions that, it's not maybe super complicated the night of the meeting, a day or two, if you see things coming up and you have questions about them, just feel free to give me a call or let Karen know, and then we'll get in touch with a little lead time. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Alex.
Sure.
Do we have time for questions?
Sure.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Alex.
of course.
I knew you were coming and I did have a few questions.
Sure.
So if I could go through those. So let's say the commission chair and a commissioner had a discussion on how they might approach completing one of their responsibilities. Would that, if it did not become serial, be considered a violation of the Brown Act?
No, because it's just two of you.
Okay. And if those two then decided they wanted to talk about that same thing with the city manager again if it did not become serious.
fine.
Then that's fine.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Now, following our February meeting that we had here,
Uh-huh.
during which we were discussing how something about completing our responsibilities.
Mhm.
After the meeting was adjourned, um, um, did I violate the Brown Act by suggesting to fellow commissioners that a potential process for fulfilling our responsibilities?
If it was a majority of them, that's something that should happen during the open session discussion.
So I violated the Brown Act at that time.
Um, you perhaps did, and if you feel there's consequences to that, you and I can chat about that. And just I can get some more details about that.
Okay, so that was going to be my next
Mhm.
question. So if I did violate, what would be appropriate next steps?
So that's something that we could discuss. There's a cure and correct procedure in the Brown Act where you can go back and do things, you know, you're given an opportunity to cure and correct, and that's what we would discuss.
Okay.
Mhm.
Are you aware of any other incidences in which this commission in most recent times has violated the Brown Act?
No.
Okay. Then I just had a couple of questions about our role.
Mhm.
Thank you. The general plan states that the planning commission will review the document annually.
Mhm.
Okay. And that has been approved by the council because the general plan has to be approved by the council.
Correct.
Okay. So given that the plan was approved, should we interpret it that we have been directed to do so?
If that's a requirement of the general plan, then I think it's something that you probably want to put on your work plan every year.
Okay. So it wouldn't be against any rules if we said, okay, now we want to review the general plan.
It would not be against any rules, especially if the general plan said thou shalt review annually.
Okay, good. Now, does the fact that the general plan has not been updated since 1997 somehow nullify that responsibility that the plan states?
No.
So
No.
still have that
Again, the
responsibility.
housing element is the one that really has the affirmative duty to go and update based on somewhat recent state housing legislation that has come through. But I'm not aware of anything else that forces you to revise or amend your general plan on any other's timestamp.
Okay, that was going to be my next question. Is there any legal implications here that we haven't updated the general plan
No,
since 1997? Well, that's good. Okay. Let's see. The commission is identified, this commission is identified as the responsible agency for 23 of the 34 programs in our housing element.
Mhm.
Okay. Is it appropriate for us to discuss in a public meeting what is needed for us to accomplish that, or to discuss the approach for us to identify how we will fulfill our responsibilities?
No, as long as it's agendized and put on an agenda, then you can discuss that.
So we would put that on.
We put
our
that on a
agenda.
planning commission agenda.
And what is the process to do that?
Karen, is that generally they work through you? I don't know. Through the city manager to put something on? Okay,
Okay. Thank you so much. You've been very helpful.
my pleasure.
Sure. One question for him?
One more question.
What? First compliment. I'll say I have had multiple conversations with Alex, and you've always been really very responsive. Usually a couple emails we sorted out, and so he's really good about getting back to you if you ever do have a question. Okay, the new rules for remote participation. You said the public must be able to hear and see the meeting, which they can, and remotely address the legislative body in real time. But we still don't let people address us remotely, correct? Or did we change that?
Well,
we are.
Yeah, so if,
we did change that. I missed that. Okay. But I'm saying, can people call in and talk to us?
they can't, so that would be something that that would be a technological solution
All
to.
right. So
if
right now,
someone-
currently, we couldn't, like, I'm gonna be on vacation later this summer. If I wanted to try and join from San Diego, I technically can't do it because.
It's vacation, just cause or emergency
No,
circumstances,
no,
Mr.
okay.
Krieger. But the old school, if you will, teleconferencing rules are still valid.
Okay.
So you could call in and there you could do an
Put it
audio.
on my LB.
Exactly. And then you've got to post the agenda on the door of your
Okay.
condo that you're renting down there.
Good enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
No, no. Seeing no more, look to announce, and we'll start with Commission 3.
Oh, no, I'm, yeah, okay, yeah, Earth Day, I'll be in
Saturday,
Hawaii, but,
25th.
you know,
Yes.
so I'll be having my own Earth Day. Aloha.
Commissioner Getzel,
No, thank you.
Commissioner Amati.
No, thank you.
I think the baseball field's looking better down at the park. Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking
Oh,
good.
yeah, actually.
Yeah. The diamond's looking better. It's getting there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I went to the planning conference last month, and one of the talk that I attended was our responsibilities with the 6 cycle housing elements as a council. So some of what you talked about here.
Commissioner. With that, next meeting, May 13th, 2026 at 6 p.m. Be there. Closed.